Well, good evening everyone and welcome. I'd like to declare the meeting open at 6:05 and welcome those present in attendance and advise that the meeting will be digitally recorded in accordance with the Council Policy GOV.1.017, digital recording of Council minutes, to record meetings to Council, to assist in the preparation of minutes and to allow live streaming of Council meetings. I'd also like to acknowledge that I'd like to begin with by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians on the land on which we meet today, the Tomagina people, and to pay our respect to those that have passed before us, their history and their culture. Item 1.1, full attendance of councillors, no apologies received. A leave of absence previously reapproved, nil. Confirmation of the minutes of our previous regular meeting. Would someone like to move on those, please?
So moved, please, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hyland. Any corrections to the minutes to be identified and agreed at this point prior to taking a vote to adopt the minutes? Are there any corrections, councillors? I'll take that as nil. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Declarations of interests. Any councillor that has, or staff members that have interest on matters on tonight's agenda.
Yes.
Councillor Bradley.
6.3.
6.3. Councillor Bradley. Any further? Nothing further? No staff with an agenda item they've got an interest in? Okay, we'll move on to 4.1, announcements by the Mayor. I don't have any in particular. Mayor's communications. There is a list there, item 4.2, of events that have been attended over the last, since the last council meeting.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Dunyam, Deputy Mayor Dunyam moved. Councillor Bramish seconded. Any questions, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Notification of council workshops. There's the council workshops that have been conducted, the up and coming one, the council attendance records. Item 4.4. We have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Courtney.
Second that.
Councillor Edwards. Any questions, any discussion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Public questions and statements. Responses to the public questions taken on notice from previous meeting, nil. 5.1, 5.2, public questions received in writing. 5.21, we can continue there until we get to public questions without notice. Public statements received in writing. And tonight, 5.5, public statements without notice. Prior to asking those with statements that are in the gallery, I would like to read this short message. The Council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements. Consistent with Council core values, councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with courtesy, fairness, dignity and respect. We expect our residents and ratepayers to apply similar standards in their dealings with Council. As Mayor, it is my responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of Council meetings and determine whether a question or statement is out of order due to a use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expressions. I know that consideration and courtesy will be forthcoming in people's comments. Thank you. So, to begin with, Mr. Hutchison, you had a statement. We'd like to go first.
Evening, Mayor and other councillors and staff.
Good evening.
My first question is around unpaid rates. So what was the outcome of the August 20 deadline for properties listed by Council with unpaid rates? Were these properties listed for sale by auction or otherwise, and can Council please provide the public with documentation of this process?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Sam. That's you've already provided. Okay, I'll ask Mrs. Searle. Would you address that question, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Mr. Hutchison, for your question. Council has commenced the statutory process to dispose of property to recover rates and charges outstanding. There are approximately 30 properties that have been through the statutory process, and those properties, so there were about 97 in total eligible for sale. We are processing those in 2 rounds. So the first round has been through a statutory process and will be listed over the coming weeks for an online auction for sale. So there's about 30 properties in that, and council will advertise through the real estate when they're ready to go up for auction. It's likely that those auctions will be staggered and not come up all at once. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Searle. Your next question, Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes, thank you. My second question is around public camping. So it's been 2 years since public camping was banned on the Boat Harbour Beach foreshore area. I pursued this issue for quite some time, hoping that council would create an alternative option for both locals and travellers. I was informed at a council meeting that public camping will be made available at the Myla Recreation Ground. Whilst it's not a perfect solution, it is a solution. Is this still the case? By what date will it be implemented, and are there any existing barriers to achieving this?
Okay. I'll ask Mrs. Bradley. Would you address that question, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hutchison, for your question. We're still working with the Myala Community Centre. We've had a number of visits on site to look at the best location on site for where public camping could occur. We've been able to attract some external funding to be able to help with the establishment, and so we're working through there'll need to be some planning consideration, identification of how they're going to operate the site, etc. And so we're working with those at the moment on that.
Thank you, Mrs. Bradley. Mr. Hutchison, you had a couple of statements to make while you're at the table.
Yep. My first comment is just around motions in the past term of councillors. So to date, there's only been 38 motions over that period from November 2018 to this month, September 2021. Between November 2018 and May 2020, there were 25 motions, at which point former councillor Ali House resigned. And from June 2020 to this council agenda, there was 13 motions. So I'm just curious, probably just more of an open-ended question, what do councillors think about those differences in totals of motions tabled by councillors at open council meetings? And the majority of those are actually by Councillor Fairbrother. I'm not trying to boost his ego, but my question is for other councillors that might have brought 0 motions to the table or very few. Do you have any fresh ideas or new ideas going into, I guess, the last year of your term before elections commencing again? Most decisions, it feels like, are discussed and decided behind closed doors in secret meetings and workshops. And council meetings, according to Councillor Hyland, are just a comedy half hour. So where is the accountability? I know from looking at what you guys are doing, I can see what you're doing, and I'm confident that you guys know that you're doing a great job, but I'm not sure that the public can see that in different various platforms. So what are you going to do for the community in this last 12 months? And my second part to my statement is just around the public camping. I've suggested a number of times that the Aldina Reserve picnic area would be a potentially suitable place should council decide to pursue that as a camping area, and that area, just like the East Wynyard area, just like the Cam River area, just like the Somerset Anzac Park, get master plans. The Aldina Picnic Reserve area needs a master plan, and bringing campers potentially to that site would potentially dissuade or push away potential future vandalism. And I think in terms of holistic responses, that is solution in my thoughts. And I haven't had the time to look at the tender for the Somerset All Abilities Playground, but given that there was only one submission, and that was well over $1 million over the budget that council set for itself, I'm curious as to whether the playground concept and design for that place needs to be scaled back, and that council could spend some of the other monies that's allocated to that project to an Aldina master plan. I'll leave it at that, but that's just something.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
How is councillors going to get the opportunity to comment?
They're not. Councillor Bramish, the questions and statements are directed to the chair for this. If Mr. Hutchison wishes to speak with the councillors, he needs to do that individually.
Thank you. My phone's on.
Okay, we'll move on to the next. That would be a statement. Mr. Neal, would you like to come forward with your statement, please?
Yeah, good day, thanks. Just like to make a few, statements, questions put to everyone regarding our country roads. I'd like to ask to start with when a road is, or how it is determined that trees will be pruned off the side of the road. What steps are taken to find whether that will be happening or not. And I guess the same with grading table drains and potholes. I've had a few instances where there's been trees close to the road and heavy vehicles have had to deliberately drive on the wrong side of the road, around blind corners, to avoid hitting the trees. In the local area there's been a few roads graded, I would have to say poorly graded, but anyway, that's my opinion. And lastly, I'd like to ask a few things about my access road, as in Yard Road. Definition of a 10C road is for farm and forestry vehicles. It is said that when a two-wheel drive vehicle can't pass, the road will be repaired. I still can't quite fathom how that a 50-tonne semi-trailer can fit into that, because in a lot of council roads, state roads, whatever, we have load limits. We have load limits on bridge. Now if you can drive a two-wheel drive car, which might weigh a couple of tonne, how the heck can you drive a 50-tonne truck in the same conditions? Now in that definition it's saying farm and forestry vehicles. Now if you're growing trees or primary produce, you've got to be able to cut them out. Farm best practice would say to use the biggest vehicles possibly able to use on the road. So I've asked this question a number of times. Is Yard Road fit and safe for use of heavy vehicles with a weight limit of up to 50 tonne? I'm yet to be able to answer that. I've sent quite a few of my emails to quite a few different people. So that's about where I'm at.
That's your question.
That's my question.
Mr. Summers, could you address that question, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So understand the question to be whether the trigger for maintenance is correct, whether two-wheel drive vehicle or semi truck. That's correct?
Pretty much, yes.
Yep.
Because I just can't fathom how the two can be put together.
Yep. I guess the two-wheel drive vehicle trigger was initially set in council service level to mean all, to be a standard vehicle to pass through there. Equally, if a farm vehicle was not able to pass, similar maintenance would apply. So if that be the case, that it deteriorates to that point, similar could be reported to council as a maintenance trigger. So.
Thank you.
Right, that pretty much answered the question. Anyone else want to ask anything before we end?
I'm afraid the questions are directed to the chair and the staff answers the questions.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, look, as I understand, it's being currently traversed by semi-trailers and has been built to that standard. So, yeah.
Maybe you should talk to some of the cattle trucks and carting out their run.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just add to the response in relation to the pruning of trees? I know Mr. Neil has had some questions around Johnson's and Aldina Road from memory, and I know that both of those have now certainly been inspected, and I know that a contractor has been engaged to prune those trees accordingly. So I understand that work will be done within the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Thanks, Mr. GM. Thank you. Mr. Ruffles, you have a statement, please. You'd like to come forward. Thank you.
Mayor and councillors, just to touch on Mr. Hutchinson's concerns about the All Abilities Playground at Somerset. Federal government gave us funded 1.3, state government 500,000, and the council has put up 700,000, around those figures, just for your information.
Yep.
Fairy godmothers probably a little bit concerned with that playground. We done a lot of our research ourselves with the equipment, and we feel that the equipment there could be better. It's half all inclusive, if you really want to say. In saying that, we're not really sure whether we want the Fairy Godmother's name to the park. That's how much we are concerned with the whole project. We feel that the Fairy Godmothers were used just to get a couple of the grants, and that the Wynyard Council is probably going to take a little bit of the cream away from that. Now, the ramifications of the park and the way that it is going to be designed and built concerns us more with, we're going to cop a bit of backlash from public. Why did you build it that way? Why is that in there? You know, you've got kids walking around with calipers or in wheelchairs, and we have boulders or rocks like this within the playground. Now, you think you've got a child with a caliper trying to walk through, difficult walking anyway, they get on one of those, they fall over. Let's hope that they don't hit their head on one of them. Now, the other thing is, with the tender getting approved, tonight apparently, we would like to be able to have a little bit more input with the tender winner before it actually is signed off, if we are able to. I'm guessing there might be if it's approved tonight, let's just say, is there a date in forward for it to be signed off, if you know where I'm going with that? Say like a week, 2 weeks, month, whatever it might be. We're hoping that we can have a little bit more input and maybe change some of the equipment, get some other equipment that's more inclusive of everybody. Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We understand your statement. Mr. GM, we've noted. Yeah. No comment? No. No, not land statement. Yep. Okay, that concludes our statements and questions time. We move on to the next section of the agenda. Planning Authority items. There are no questions for the Planning Department. Questions without notice raised. Nil. Public statements relating to planning matters. Nil. And we move on to 6.3, which at 6:25 we become a Planning Authority. 6:25, and Councillor Bradley is declared on this one and just left the room. So, okay. 6.3, recommendation there, councillors.
So moved, Mr Mayor, as per the recommendation.
Deputy Mayor Dunya moved.
Yeah, second that, Mayor.
Councillor Brammy seconded. Discussion. Any, you'd like to speak to the motion, Deputy Mayor Dunya?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I speak in support of the Council Officer's recommendation for approval of this development. It should be noted, however, that Dipipwi raised valid issues around the location of this residence situated in a listed, threatened vegetation community, Banksia serrata woodland, which is unique to only the Rocky Cape area in Tasmania and a small area on Flinders Island. Dipipwi noted also that previous clearing had occurred without appropriate consideration of the value of the vegetation community. This cleared site still can be considered Banksia serrata woodland, even though it has been impacted by unauthorised land clearing. Dipipwi does recommend that advice be sought from Conservation Assessment section of Dipipwi to ensure any future works comply with the Threatened Species Protection Act 1995, Threatened Species Protection Regulations 2016 and the Nature Conservation Act 2002. While this application is for retrospective approval of clearing concerns, I assume that as this site adjoins the Rocky Cape National Park, Dipipwi will be responsible for ensuring onward compliance with the above acts and regulations. This approval has been made in accordance with Waratah Wynyard Council's interim planning scheme, and I ask Council to also support this recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunya. Any further speakers? Yeah. Councillor Hyland.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment if I could.
Amendment, Councillor Hyland.
I'd like to remove condition 6 and replace it with the one that I've got. All stormwater falling onto the hard stand areas within the boundary of the property must be collected and discharged into an approved drainage system to the satisfaction of the Director of Infrastructure and Development.
Okay.
And yeah, and another one. I've got another one.
Okay, I think the move of the motion's considering what what you've suggested, Councillor Hyland, and may not need an amendment if. So let's hear your other one.
This is a new one, an additional one.
Okay.
The developer shall ensure that the entrance to the property from Sisters Beach Road is sealed in an all-weather material for a minimum of 6 metres from the edge of the existing Sisters Beach Road seal in accordance with TSD R03V2.
Okay, that'd be item 10 then on our conditions.
Yes.
Yes, that'll be right.
Okay, would the mover of the motion accept those to be included in the current situation?
I certainly do, thank you, Mr Mayor.
And the seconder, Councillor Bramish?
Not at this stage, Mayor, without asking a couple of questions.
Okay.
That entrance is sealed now, is that correct? I don't believe, I understand where Councillor Island's come from, but I believe it's sealed for so many metres up there now.
Yeah, it has got a seal on it from my viewing, but it is just a seal. And as you would be aware, I raised this a couple of weeks ago about other driveways, and it's an opportunity to get these things fixed, and otherwise it's going to stay in the condition it is. And it may need some extra work in conjunction with the drainage, that's all.
Yeah, yep. Could I just get the drainage one read out to me again, please?
Rose, could you just run through that item 10, that condition 10 that Councillor Hyland noted? Oh, you've got it on the board, sorry.
Do that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. Oh, you want me to read it out? Right. All stormwater falling onto hardstand areas within the boundary of the property must be collected and discharged into an approved drainage system to the satisfaction of the Director of Infrastructure and Development.
I guess I can understand, Mr Mayor, if I can comment, I guess I can understand where the motion is coming from, but I'm wondering whether the soil type, being rock, would be able to be suitable to put a proper soakage drain in, or whether we just probably yeah, look, I understand, and I'll probably support that motion, but to the best of my knowledge, that the entrance to the property has been hot mixed a period of time ago, and I just wondered whether it's fair on the developer to have to redo it all again when they've had to do it once.
If I could just speak to my amendment, it'd be
Yes.
good, probably. Well, probably the underlying factor there is, if you drive down that road, there's a couple of very short...
Point of order, Mayor. I don't believe the amendment has been accepted as yet, has it?
No, we're still discussing it to be concluded with the motion, and given the intended amendment coming forward to consider it to be included with the motion, I was given the Councillor Hyland the opportunity to clarify it.
I'm happy to include it for discussion, Mayor.
Okay.
So the mover did, so I
Okay.
was the seconder for discussion.
Well, Mayor, can I ask a question then, if you're opening it up for debate? My question is, where are the approved drainage systems on site that the mover of the amendment is referring to?
Approved. I didn't say anything about approved. All stormwater falling into hardstand areas within the boundary of the property must be collected and discharged in an approved drainage system, which is a standard probably stormwater drain.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking. Where are the approved drainage systems that your amendment refers to in item 6? I can't see it on the recommendation up there, so I can't.
I think before we go any further, I should clarify things by asking for a seconder for the amendment, and then we can get right into discussing it. When then it can be decided whether we include it in the current motion. So, is there a seconder for the amendment of Councillor Hyland?
I'm happy to second that.
Councillor Edwards. Okie dokie. Now we're legal. Yeah. Now you can speak to the amendment, Councillor Hyland, when it suits you. But what was your question, Councillor Fairbrother?
Item number 6 refers to...
Just a minute, mate. Just a minute, Councillor Fairbrother. We've got to give Councillor Hyland opportunity to speak to the amendment.
Yeah, well, the problem is the steepness of the driveway. The actual driveway goes up, well, at least 100 metres directly up from the road, and you can see that the amount of water that's actually cut down both sides. Heavy rain, and everything that comes down that track ends up on the road. Now the situation is with the road, for a safety issue, they're very short S-bends come around that blind corner onto that driveway, and if they are actually coming a little bit faster than they should be, all of a sudden you find a whole heap of loose gravel on the road, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. And we've got an opportunity to fix that while we're doing this project. So the opportunity's there, so that's the reason why I've put the amendment there.
Okay. Yeah, questions now, Councillor Fairbrother?
Thanks, Mayor. The amendment of number 6, or the inclusion of that condition, talks about an approved drainage system. My question is, where are the approved drainage systems that the mover refers to?
Well, Mr Mayor, it'd be the normal drain that takes away the water. It's got to be accessed into that on the side of the road. And that'd be a standard drain all over Tasmania, I would assume.
Mayor, is it not to the satisfaction of council staff the original motion has stormwater is to be fully contained with the boundaries of the property. Council has not considered an approved drainage system. So to me, the recommended amendment is void of uncertainty because there is no approved drainage system to discharge the water in to as per the amendment. So to me, the proposed amendment is devoid of certainty because I've asked the question, where is the approved drainage system? And nobody in the room can identify an approved drainage system. So why are we putting water into an approved drainage system where there is no approved drainage system?
Okay. One of our staff members, Mrs. Platt, would you take the opportunity to clarify the conditions, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, an approved stormwater condition, generally that would then get addressed further at a building and plumbing permit stage. So it's not uncommon then. So if a planning permit was granted, we would then have detailed building permit drawings and plumbing permit drawings subsequently follow. So at that stage, then if the condition remained, the Director of Development Services would also have to review that plumbing permit documentation to make sure that it did contain within the boundaries and was suitable for that development.
Thank you.
Further question, if I might. So, if I understand it rightly, if there's an existing dwelling on site, because I take Councillor Hyland's concerns is runoff from the existing driveway, which I believe many a year ago Council went and approved at NBNCO to put a tower on site. As part of those conditions that was apportioned to that development, they were required to upgrade the driveway to a certain standard. That standard, as I understand, was included to be sealed. If we're going down the track of getting this manager's residence to connect to an approved drainage system, that manager's residence, which we're considering tonight, has no bearing on the driveway. So the condition, I believe, is satisfactorily addressed in Condition 6, which says, from Council's planner, stormwater is to be fully contained within the boundaries of the property. How that's done, for me, I'd be putting it into a rainwater tank, whether it be for bushfire or for residential use, I don't really mind. As part of that process, there should be a subsurface drainage system. It's consistent with all of our planning requirements, plumbing requirements, building requirements. That's just what you do. This additional amendment is more about, I think that we should be doing this. It's not consistent what we've done with other applications. The consistency is provided in the original recommendation, which we do for every development, not this amended development. So I don't support the amendments, either stormwater condition 6, nor the developer should ensure the entrance of the property is sealed in an all-weather material, because it should be already done. If it's not done, Council need to take some enforcement action against the previous applicant who was required to seal, I believe, all of the driveway. So I don't support either amendment.
Okay, any further speakers to the amendment, please? We're working on the amendment. Over to you, Councillor Courtney.
Mine's more a question, because obviously I haven't been on council and know planning stuff as well as you guys do. But my understanding is from the first number 6 clearly says that the water will be maintained on the property, and what you're saying is that as part of the ongoing process of the sort of drainage application, the building application, that would be addressed anyway. So this would be unnecessary. Am I understanding that right?
Mrs. Black.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the original condition is a standard planning condition to make sure all stormwater is contained within the property boundaries. A condition such as this suggested condition 6 can sometimes be used as well. However, yes, you're correct in thinking that we would definitely have plumbing and building permit plans coming in after a planning permit was issued. So then our environmental health officers and staff would also be reviewing those documents.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further discussion regarding the amendment? Councillor Bramish, you wish to speak?
I know I second the motion and agreed that the amendments be tacked on, but I'm not going to support the motion as it sits now with the amendments. I think there's enough been said now, and I don't disagree with any comments that Councillor Fairbrother made. So obviously our planning staff was happy with the conditions, and I don't think we should change them.
Thank you, Councillor Bramish. Any further speakers regarding the amendment? Councillor Edwards.
I just wanted to ask a question for point 10. So whose responsibility is it, because I'm getting two different stories here, to who has the driveway sealed? Is it, to follow up, is it the property owner to follow up why it's not sealed, or is it the council's responsibility in that?
Ms. Plapp, would you like to address that question, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the responsibility, a planning permit lays with the land. So should a developer then pursue or commence that planning permit, it would be the responsibility then of the landowner to then ensure that the conditions of their permit have been met.
Thank you.
So with us, if we accepted point 10, what would that do then with the one that's already in place, or are we best not to have point 10 and follow up on what's already in place for sealing the whole driveway, from what I gather?
Yes, over to you, Mrs. Plapp.
Thank you. It would be a matter of checking original or previous planning permits to see which portion of the permits have been acted on or potentially not acted on as well. And that can be followed up then with a compliance action.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further speakers regarding the amendment? If not, I'll ask Councillor Hyland.
I've just got a question, if I may.
Councillor Bramish.
Councillor Edwards made the comment, the whole driveway. We can't ask the developer to do the whole driveway, only a percentage, can't we? Like so many metres in.
We didn't.
I didn't understand that Councillor Edwards asked that question.
Mayor Walsh, if I clarify, perhaps I may have mentioned that, but equally the planning application from NBNCO was a considerable number of years ago. That is my recollection. I am ageing, I must admit. And it's a long time since I revisited that. So I'm saying that is my best recollection. I haven't checked it. I know that there has been some discussions between the previous applicant and the owner of the land, but I don't know the currency of where that's at.
Okay. Any further speakers to the amendment? If not, I'll ask Councillor Hyland to close the debate on the amendment.
Thanks,
If he wishes.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, the obvious issue, the water, and if anybody drives by and has a look, the water, the situation where the junction is with the road cannot, in my view, be stored on the land. It's got to be run into a stormwater.
Point of order, Mayor. The mover of an amendment of motion doesn't get the right to sum up. Once the speaker's been, my understanding is, and again I might be corrected, I understand that the procedure is once the speakers have spoken, there is no right of reply for the mover to respond to the debate or to close the debate when there's an amendment.
Yeah, the Mayor did ask me if I wanted to, and I probably took a leaf out of your book and jumped at the chance.
Okay, we'll close at that, and I'll put the amendment, and there'll be a division, so I'll ask for a show of hands. Those in favour of the amendment, please indicate, please. Councillor Hyland. Those against? Is the balance the other 7 councillors? The amendment is lost. We now revert to the original motion, moved by Councillor Deputy Mayor Dunyam and seconded by Councillor Bramish. Are there any speakers further to that motion? If not, I'd ask, do you wish to close the debate on that motion, Councillor Deputy Mayor Dunyam? Okay. Councillor Fairbrother, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I do, thank you. I speak in support of the application, and I do so because I think that adding value to existing businesses in the municipality can only be a good thing for everybody. I can recall initially when this particular development received approval from this council, it was at a time when there was a number of developments happening around the municipality, and one was the Seaway Motel, the motel complex that was mooted for Boat Harbour Beach. If I remember rightly, there was a number of visitor accommodation and camping facilities mooted by the Voss company. I remember at the time there was a lot of hoo-ha. I call it hoo-ha or noise in the media about, isn't this going to be good for the municipality? And at the same time there was this application for this Sandridge Estate development, and there was other ones at Boat Harbour Beach which subsequently was approved and have proven to be assets in the community. And I don't say that lightly. I believe that this particular development has had unknown and unintended consequences or benefits for this municipality. The particular development brings people to the municipality from outside of the municipality, and whether they stay at Sandridge Estate in their glamping or whether they stay at like accommodation places, what it does is stimulates our economy. And what this particular development does here tonight is adds value to that business in providing some further professional aspect to the development which they provide in the community. And whilst there is noise made by Dipipwe about threatened species, I can grow Banksia serrata at my place at Boat Harbour Beach, and I'm not in a declared conservation zone, but I know that I can grow Banksia serrata. So if there is concern about a few Banksia serrata being cleared from the site, perhaps we should have put a condition in there that for those Banksia serrata that have been cut down, perhaps we should plant a few new ones. But given that I know the owners of the block and the concern that they have and care for the environment, perhaps they're going to do that anyway. They've already, as I understand, have volunteered 450 acres of their property for the conservation of not only wildlife but for flora and fauna. And to say, oh my goodness, they've cut down some trees and that's all we focus on, I think we've lost sight of what we should be about as a council. 450 acres of conservation zone, I think we need to acknowledge that because that, like this particular development in my mind, we don't have too many people that are prepared to put up their hand and say, hey, I'm prepared to put a covenant on my land to preserve the Banksia serrata, the animals that live in the adjoining national park. And I think that as a council it would be good for us to acknowledge that declaration by the property owners. So I support and endorse the recommendation and look forward to council supporting local business that provides a benefit to the wider Waratah Wynyard community, and I wish them well with it. Thank you.
Any further speakers to the motion? before I ask the deputy that moved the motion to, if she wishes to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My word, we've had quite a lot of discussion about this particular development. I don't believe any of that discussion is negative. I do commend Councillor Fairbrother for identifying that this particular development will improve the economic position, possibly of Sisters Beach and maybe the wider community. However, it is important that our developers do understand that there are some rules and regulations that they must abide by. And I did bring it up earlier because it is important that we do remember that Banksia serrata is only growing in that Rocky Cape area, not Boat Harbour, whether Councillor Fairbrother thinks that he can do that or not.
Point of order, Mayor. This application is for land at Boat Harbour.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. The manager's residence is in support of that particular business, and I think that it is important that we do go on and make sure that all of the regulations are followed through with, and that this application is supported by all of the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Duniam. I now put the motion. I guess there'll be a division. Those in favour, please indicate. Councillor Edwards, Fairbrother, Courtney, Bramish, Duniam and myself. Those against, Councillor Hyland. The motion is carried. Item 6.4. Oh, sorry. Yeah, at 6:50. Councillor Bradley returns.
And through Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification. I don't believe there's anything in your meeting procedures to substantiate what Councillor Fairbrother stated before. I believe on an amendment you do have the ability to close. Perhaps you're referring to a procedural motion where you certainly don't have the ability to do so. But I think as I see the meeting procedures in front of me, just to clarify that that opportunity would have been able to be had.
Thank you, Mr. GM.
In response to that, can I apologise then for misleading or adjudicating?
Thank you. Item 6.4. Welcome back, Councillor Bradley. Multiple dwellings located at 300 Reservoir Drive. There was a recommendation there, councillors, on item 6.4 on the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Mayor, as per the recommendation.
Deputy Mayor Duniam moved.
I second that.
Councillor Edwards seconded. Any discussion? Do you wish to open any debate on the matter, Deputy Mayor Duniam?
No, not at this stage. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any further speakers? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried unanimously. That's it, Mr. GM. That's it for the planning. Okay, at 6:52, we close the planning session. We move on to matters raised by councillors. Response to questions taken on notice from the previous meeting. That's all listed. Until we go live at 7.3. 7.2, councillors' questions received in writing nil. Councillors' questions without notice, 7.3, is now on the agenda. Any questions from councillors?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Courtney.
I'm concerned about one of the items being done tonight. Obviously, if we have major issues, and that's what I've heard about the All Abilities Playground, I'm not sure that we should be putting this up tonight, or whether we need to go back and have further conversations. So is that something that we can delay, or do we have to wait for the motion to say that we can delay that motion and further investigate?
Mr. GM, do you have some clarification on that one, please?
You address that matter at the time that agenda item comes before the council.
Thank you. Okay, any further councillor questions without notice? We'll have to have it. Okay, no further councillors' questions without notice. We'll move on. Notices of motion, nil. We move on to 9.1 on the agenda, the East Wynyard Foreshore Master Plan for final adoption. Deputy Mayor Dunyan moved.
And I'll second that.
So Councillor Edwards seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, if I could just make a very brief comment, Mr Mayor. So I have asked the council to adopt this as per the recommendation, and consultation did identify issues that did need to be considered by council in this final plan, and amendments have been made after consideration of community feedback. So I think that it is a plan that will be accepted by the community at large.
Thank you. Any further speakers regarding the motion? Councillor Bramish.
Thanks, Mayor. Don't want to sound negative. I don't think I'll speak against the motion at this stage, but I have some concerns that we're doing away with the street parking and making the car parks bigger. I guess that's my concern. The reason I'm concerned about that is for people carrying things to their car, someone pulling up with a trailer to pick up some biggish trees or some timber. They're not going to be able to park a trailer in the car park, I wouldn't have thought. And I believe, I understand the road needs to be wider, but I believe we should take the curb out and make it wider there so people can park. It works well now, apart from the narrowness of the road. So that's my concern. Apart from that, I'm quite happy, but I guess we've talked about this at workshops and we've gone through, and I just thought, well, I'll raise that concern tonight. You've heard it all before from me, and then it's documented then my concerns. But apart from that, I'm quite happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bramish. Any further speakers? No further speakers. We have a motion. We've had one speaker. Do you wish to sum up, Deputy Mayor Dunyan?
Not at this stage, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 9.2, the Cam River Reserve Master Plan, the annual update. The council note the annual status of the update on the progress of the Cam River Reserve Master Plan. Would someone like to move on that, please?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
I'll second that.
Councillor Edwards, seconded. You wish to speak, Deputy Mayor Dunyan?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Fairbrother.
Just ask a question if I can. It's perhaps in the area adjacent to the Cam River Reserve, and that is with the maybe I am stretching it a bit. Currently, I understand, Mayor, there is the duplication of the bridge occurring at the moment in between the Cam River Reserve and Anzac Park. Maybe it's a question without notice. Is there any opportunity for council to write to the state government and request that could I restart that? The demolition of the existing Cam Bridge is going to happen somewhere down the track after the new bridge is built. There has been quite a bit of noise in the community about duplicating the bridge. My question is there any opportunity for council to take the money that is for the demolition of the bridge, take ownership of that second lane and use it for community purposes such as walking across the Cam River Bridge, or in the event of an accident on the main bridge, it could be used as a backup. And I know that I'm perhaps stretching it a bit to have the question in under Cam River Reserve Master Plan, but it is in an area adjacent to the Cam River and it does impact on the Cam River Master Plan perhaps. I'm just asking the question, is there any opportunity, or is it something worthwhile for council and community to consider.
Do you have any comment on that, Mr. GM?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess the consultation period over the new bridge has closed, and council did put in a submission to that particular consultation period. I guess importantly, the design as proposed is I guess such that should there be a crash on that bridge, and it would be extremely unlikely that a crash would occur on a short, straight piece of road. I guess that's the important point, but it is designed, it is wider, and there are greater footpaths and so forth, which then allows for access past any stationary vehicles, I guess, or crash sites. That is the intended use. Now, clearly, the proposal you have around ownership of the existing bridge and so forth comes with a whole range of considerations that would need to be taken into account. But I understand the condition of the existing bridge is such that it does require replacement, so whether or not it could even remain in place would be questionable. So there's some stuff to find out in that regard. We can certainly ask some questions, but I would suggest that's probably unlikely. I believe the existing rail bridge will be used for pedestrian crossing at that point and converted into the coastal pathway, and equally there'll be pedestrian lanes on the new bridge design.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Any further questions? Any further speakers? Councillor Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a very quick comment. Work actually hasn't begun on the building of the new bridge. They are simply doing doing the research before they even put it out for tender, and the tender won't be out until the end of the year. So the actual work on the bridge, on the new bridge, hasn't commenced as yet. So it will be interesting to see what happens.
Thank you. Any further speakers before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.3, the Transport Infrastructure Service Level Updates. There's a recommendation there, councillors. We have a mover, please. We're nearly wearing Deputy Mayor Dunyam out. Councillor Edwards.
I'll move that.
Okay. Any seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Any speakers? Any questions? I'll put the motion. All in. Okay, Councillor Fairbrother.
Sorry, Mayor. I just couldn't let it go by without saying that page 107 of our current agenda, the audit panel actually endorse this particular review, as I understand it, to occur. Clearly, we've had a submission earlier in the night about our service levels, whether they be for heights of trees or tree limbs impacting on our road. It's something that we as council need to constantly be on top of. Clearly there's a mismatch between council's service levels and community expectations. I don't know that we have as council communicated that well enough, or is it that some members of the community take advantage of the fact that they promote that council has a bottomless pit of money, which we don't have, and there appears to be some recognition that when a road is in such a state that the community believe needs to be repaired, council needs to jump and attend to it. Well, unfortunately, the way I see council is that we're not all things to all people, and neither can we ever be, because the ratepayers' funds that we are entrusted to spend, we need to do it in a methodical manner, and these service standards that we're considering here in our transport infrastructure service level update, it gives council staff some consistency in how and which roads, which trees that they go and respond to. And I have every confidence that council staff, in particular when it comes to Yard Road at Yolla, that they have done it consistently with all of our roads in the municipality. If there is needs for 50-tonne trucks to drive on that road, I have every confidence that council staff have treated that road as they have done every other road, and the service level standards are appropriately afforded to that road. So when we get concerns that members of the public disagree with, as a councillor who is entrusted with spending ratepayers' funds, I have every confidence that it's done in a fair and equitable manner, even though some within the community disagree with council staff's position. So I support the endorsement of the review of these transport infrastructure service levels that we have before us.
Okay, any further speakers regarding the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. Councillor Edwards, do you wish to close on the motion at all?
No, I'm happy with all the recommendations that have been put forward.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in. Councillor Bramish.
I'm going to support the motion, but I believe we've got probably an uphill battle in front of us with some crossovers in that to negotiate with the ratepayers. After talking to the GM and the Director of Engineering, I think that outcome can be successfully done, you know.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. We move on to 9.4, the Cradle Coast Regional Cat Management Strategy. We have it moving a seconder, please.
I'd like to move as per the recommendation, please,
Deputy
Mr.
Mayor
Mayor.
Duniam.
Second.
Councillor Hyland, seconded. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Deputy Mayor Duniam?
Very briefly, please, Mr. Mayor. There are two parts to this recommendation. The first part is to adopt this strategy, and the second part is to agree that Council's involvement under this regional cat management strategy will be limited to education, promotion and advocacy at this time, which I think is a very good approach for our council to take. This is a strategy that should be supported in terms of the environmental implications when cats are not managed responsibly, particularly in terms of the adverse effects of cats on the community, agriculture and native wildlife. And I ask the council to support this recommendation.
Any further speakers? Councillor Courtney.
I'll support the motion, but I'd like to just have it on the record that I'm hoping that at the end of 2026 we're going to do more than just educate, because the amount of cats we have and the devastation that it does, I don't think educating is far enough. I'm happy to support a strategy that might look at how many cats we have and what the problem is, but we damn well need to do more than that. So at the end of 2026, I hope that this is a lot better than let's just educate people.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Councillor Hyland, you light on? Do you want to? Would you like to speak? No. Okay. No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 9.5. Request for designated parking at the Wynyard Senior Cits Club. You have a recommendation. We have two options there.
I'll move with option 1.
Move Councillor Edwards. Option 1. Do we have a seconder, please?
Second that.
Councillor Hyland, seconded. Any speakers? Councillor Edwards, do you wish to open the debate?
I'm happy to go with option 1 and for the car spaces at the back of the building. Even though it's not a lot of parking spaces, it still has removed 6 cars off the street to allow the people going into the building more safely to get out of their vehicles in time rather than cars rushing past along the street.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Any further speakers? If not, I'll put Councillor Hyland.
Yeah, the fact that there's, by using those 6 at the rear of the building, and Councillor Edwards is right, there's not a lot of parking. I think senior cits mostly would have to park diagonally across from the centre, which they've got across that busy intersection. And either or, triple park in our Long Bay parks in the information centre, which creates a bit of a havoc in the tourism season. So, yeah, happy to support that.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland.
So the consequences of this particular motion, if it's passed, can that just be clarified?
Mr. GM, could you explain what we're doing there, please?
Through Mr. Mayor, I think there's a couple of differing views perhaps within the management of the Senior Cits committee, and the original request was for just the standard parking bays, the 6, if you like, if you're facing the current disabled parking bay there at the facing the building, the senior sits building on the right hand side of those bays there. Originally the request was just to have those. Subsequent to the original request, there has been a comment that's come through that they'd like a further disability bay. So I guess it's suggested here that, and the wording of option 1 states designate the equivalent area of 6 public car spaces, so that they will then work with them around whether it remains as 6 parking spaces or is indeed an additional disability bay, and then potentially it would end up only being 3 to 4 standard bays. So they need to work through that. It would be our expectation that the club would fund the signage, given it is their request. So that is put into the recommendation. But if there is a disability bay and there's some line marking required, that would most likely fall to council.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Councillor Courtney.
I'm just going to note that there's going to be division, because I think that the first motion, where we note that council say that privatisation of these parks would exacerbate the current parking shortage within the Wynyard CBD and would establish a precedent for other bodies to seek similar redesignation of public car parking spaces for exclusive use. I don't like that we're going to do that. I don't like that we're overriding our own motion that says let's not set a precedent to give people exclusive use of public car parks. So there will be a division. I'm going with option 2.
Any further speakers? Councillor Bradley.
Mr. Mayor, could you just in option 1, option 1, number 2.
Yep.
Can you just inform me what it means by specific use by the club members? Now, is that for people with disability, or is it just for the manager and the secretary and whatever? Because I don't agree with that. I think it should be for people that maybe with the disability. I don't like the idea of just anybody having that car park.
Yeah. Through Mr. Mayor, the wording that was used in the request, and I'll read it out. It says that the parking for members will be by first arrival in parking bay areas available. However, the management of the senior sits, will ensure the elderly who can only walk a short distance receive preference for the designating parking spaces. So ultimately they're suggesting that they will work that out amongst themselves in the club, and I think that's the best way. We shouldn't have any say on that. If the bays are earmarked for their use, it's up to them to determine who has access to them.
Thanks, Mr. GM. And on a personal note, I'd just like to have a comment on observation of what's needed down there at the senior sits, and what has been happening in regard to the long bay parking that's provided at the info centre, the Wonders of Wynyard. I believe it's a great service to those elderly of our community that need a bit of extra care, and if we can't support the people that have supported us through this stage of their life when they become members of that organisation, I think we're failing in our duties. Thank you. Councillor Fairbrother.
Just curious, what are the prerequisites to become a member of the Senior Citizens Club?
I couldn't answer that question. Okay. Any further comment? Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. You wish to?
I was going to let it slide, but I'm not. I don't think that's fair to say that, you know, by saying that I don't think there should be exclusive use of a public car park means that I'm not supporting our senior citizens. I absolutely support our senior citizens. They absolutely have the right to use that car park, but that is a public car park, and we're going to give exclusive use to a club which we know will leave us open to setting precedent. So I take umbrage to the suggestion that I'm not supporting the senior citizens. I am, but I'm not going to do it by setting a precedent that could cause us problems with other clubs about them wanting a certain amount of car parks for their members. And I'm sure they have more than 5 members. I'm sure they could be adults and work it out amongst themselves. Exclusive use is not me not caring about our senior citizens. Exclusive use is me saying, let's stand by our original motion and not set precedent.
Councillor Courtney, I don't want to start a debate, but I didn't suggest that you weren't supporting our senior citizens. It was a comment that I made in my own feelings in regard to what I felt in regard to those people in our community that use the senior sits. I wasn't in... Big pardon? Okay. Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother.
Question. If we've got other organisations within the municipality, does this motion, if it's passed, open council up to requests coming forward for other organisations within the municipality? Bowls Club, perhaps Boat Harbour Surf Lifesaving Club have got a number of senior citizens amongst there. They find it hard to get car parks for their members. Is it then open for them or any other organisation to come to council and say, we've got senior citizens within our group, can you apportion a number of car parks for our senior sits so that our membership is not disadvantaged when it comes to meetings? Is that a precedent? My question is that a precedent we're setting for other institutions or organisations in the municipality?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess currently we would be dealing with each of these requests on a case-by-case basis, so I'm unaware of any other requests that have come forward. I think it is a determination for council to make whether or not you wish to allocate these bays, and similarly you may well have future requests based on whichever way that you determine tonight. It's a difficult one to answer, but you may or may not get requests in the future, and as I said, we'll have to deal with those as they come forward.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother.
Mayor, I've asked two questions. I haven't spoken either in favour or against the motion, I don't believe.
Funny thing, I had you down in the column where you'd spoken.
Asked two questions.
Okay.
Mayor, I do speak against the motion because of the precedents that it does set. I am a member of the Wynyard Historical Society. Most of those members perhaps would fit or qualify for membership of the senior citizens. If we go down this track, perhaps, because I often find it hard to get a car park at the community centre when the Wynyard Historical meetings are on, as I'm sure most of the other membership. I'm sure that they perhaps would like a number of dedicated car parking spaces within the community car park, public car park at the community centre, in a similar manner in which we're doing here. I just think that we're setting a dangerous precedent for other organisations within the municipality and won't be supporting the motion.
Okay, Councillor Edwards, any further speakers before I ask if Councillor Edwards likes to sum up? No? Okay, Councillor Edwards, your opportunity if you wish.
Yep, I'm happy to stand by option one, and I just feel for the safety that it's going to help them get off that busy street, and I know that it's a car park space that is further away from the busyness of the centre of town. Okay,
I'll close the debate and call for a division and ask for those in favour of the current motion to please indicate. Those in favour, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Hyland, Councillor Bramish, Councillor Duniam and myself. Those against, Councillor Fairbrother, Councillor Bradley and Councillor Courtney. The motion is carried. 9.7. Brandon. Oh, missed him? Missed one? Have I really? I said I wasn't going to do that tonight. Here we go. 9.6. I did, didn't I? Delegation, Right to Information Act 2009. There's a recommendation there, councillors, on that matter.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam moved. Councillor Hyland moved. Seconded. Any discussion?
Question.
Question from Councillor Courtney.
Do we have a right to information officer on council that this would normally go through, or are all these right to informations now going to come directly through the General Manager?
Mr. GM, can you help us there?
No, we do have right to information officers that would deal with the complaints, and this would allow for further delegation to those officers to occur. Yep.
Thank you. Any speakers? No speakers, no questions. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.7. Brand and signage policy and associated guidelines.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Moved Deputy Mayor Duniam, seconded Councillor Hyland. Any speakers, any questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.8. The policy review regarding the Australia Day Awards policy guidelines.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam, move. Seconded Councillor Hyland. Any questions? Any speakers? Councillor Duniam.
Yes, just briefly. This policy review brings the Council's policy in line with the Australia Day Council's recommendations and to ensure there are clear guidelines for determining the awarding of these awards. So I ask the Council to support this motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further speakers? Any questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.9. The budget amendment for Cardigan Street Recreation Ground surface drainage.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam, move.
Second that.
Councillor Edwards. Any speakers? Would you like to open the debate, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. This recommendation identifies the immediate need for works to be undertaken at the Cardigan Street Recreation Ground, which does not currently meet the standards specified by Football Tasmania, in particular poor drainage, particularly after large rainfall events, rendering the area substandard. This may require the Somerset Soccer Club to forfeit their matches, potentially resulting in a fine of the club. The situation does require urgent redress to allow the ground to recover prior to the 2022 soccer season. I think we also need to acknowledge that the Somerset Soccer Club should be congratulated on their premiership win in the 2021 season.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor Duniam. Any further speakers before I put the motion? Councillor Courtney.
Obviously, I'm going to support the motion. As everybody knows, I'm a big supporter of the soccer clubs and getting Somerset sorted. I would like to note at this stage that I'm very disappointed that in the same newspaper that wrote that we weren't working with the Somerset Club about the drainage issues, that this tender was in the paper a couple of pages later showing that we are trying to sort out the drainage. And I'd like to commend the President, David Pease, for writing to us and letting us know that what was in the Advocate was misquoted and false. So I'm very disappointed in our media. I'm not surprised. I've long held the belief that they are biased, but to print untruths coming from a member of the public as a president of the soccer club, trying to have a go at council when we're trying to do the right thing, we're working collaboratively, we have a good relationship, to make out that we don't have a good relationship and we're not doing well, I think was absolutely disgusting, and this is the time to bring it up.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any further speakers? I'd just like to endorse that because I always read Saturday's Advocate early, and it was the very first thing I done was contacted the GM, and it all proceeded from then with regard to the President, informing us that there wasn't anyone happier than him the way we were working with them, and had no gripes. And I was also disappointed in the report. Deputy Mayor Duniam.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I can endorse that as well. I did bring it up at a council workshop that David Pease spoke with me, and he was full of praise for the work that this council has done, the support that the councillors have given the soccer club, and he couldn't speak highly enough of what the council is doing for the soccer club. So I think that, as Councillor Courtney has said, the media release was totally out of order, and maybe they should be taken to task, but I'll leave that to someone else to do.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Duniam. That closes the debate. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Oh. You have a statement or a question, Councillor Fairbrother?
That I do. I haven't spoken either.
Oh, okay. I thought Councillor Duniam was closing the debate as she was the mover of the motion.
Oh, I'm quite happy for
No,
that then.
you've got a question you'd like to say something, you're welcome to go.
My question was in line with Councillor Courtney's comments. I thought too the comments recorded in the press was out of order. If they were, as it has been stated, not quoted accurately, surely there should be a response from the paper. Some people would call such a response an apology. I think in my mind, if there has been an error, as it has been stated that an apology of sorts, where it comes from, I don't know, but I think perhaps it should be pertinent and furnished forthwith. If there is and has been identified, errors have been made, if that is the case.
Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. Was you going to speak, Councillor Brammy? No, okay. Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. The next one is 9.10, award of the contract for Anzac Park All Abilities Playground.
I'd like to move that we defer the motion, and I'd like to have a workshop with the people that are actually involved in the fairy godmothers so that we can all hear from both sides what the problem is, because I didn't realise there was a problem until tonight when our speaker got up and identified it. So I'm not happy to award a contract if I feel like there's obviously issues here that need to be addressed. So I'd like another workshop with the people that are actually helping with the design of the All Abilities Playground. Otherwise, I'm not comfortable awarding a contract that there's this amount of discontent with the people that it's most important to.
Okay, it's been moved that we defer the item by Councillor Courtney. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Edwards, seconded. Any further discussion regarding the alternative motion?
I just can't put my name towards the recommendation here. I think, they need to know that what's in it, and then they need to be happy with it all being inclusive, all abilities, and I think it just needs to be ironed out. And I know it might have some implications on timelines and all that sort of stuff, but I think to move forward collectively and happily, thank you. I think we need to do that unless somebody else has a better option, but I won't be going with the motion if it goes that way.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Mr GM, I understand that you had something to contribute.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. So the tender prices will remain accurate, remain present and current until the 23rd of the 9th. So Council needs to make a decision within 3 days around this particular tender as per the timeframes. It was advertised on the 23rd of July. So the only way that I guess the extension can be granted is with the acceptance of the tenderer before you. So you do run some risk in that regard, and we would need to negotiate for an extension over the coming days to allow for further discussions to take place. So just be aware of the ramifications of your decision in that regard.
Thank you, Mr GM. Any further speakers regarding the alternate motion?
Can I ask a question?
Sure can.
If we go with the tender, are we then still able to have a workshop? And if they are still not happy, then will it still go forward?
If I understand the question correctly, Mr Mayor, that if you accept the recommendation, you are awarding the contract to Hardings as per the price presented to you tonight. Clearly, there can still be, and with any successful tenderer, further negotiations, but pending the timing of those and pending the nature of those, that may attract variations to the contract, or it may result in price movements, those sorts of things. So it doesn't certainly preclude any further discussions, but you are a little more locked in than if you don't.
Thank you. Councillor Fairbrother.
Mayor, I foreshadow that I won't be supporting the new motion. My reasons for not supporting it is this particular project to me was devised, or the concept came about under the previous general manager, and that was what, 4 or 5 years ago, prior to this general manager coming on board. That was when the concept was first thought of. Here we are 4 or 5 years later, and we're contemplating deferring the awarding of the existing tenders. I was going to build a dwelling until I got some prices for what it's going to cost to build a similar dwelling to what I've built previously. And it's like, what? Are you kidding me? These prices, they're just off the show. We have a tenderer that has some specifications. They've provided us with a quote. My concern is if we don't accept it, that and I understand the concern is that there is a view that we're not providing as much infrastructure within the build that the community would like. I'm not saying I don't want to have a talk to the fairy godmothers or anybody else. I think that yes, that is something that needs to happen. But I guess what I'm saying is, for me, it's like we've got a quote for a particular build. For me, it's like, yep, I'm quite happy to accept that. If there's going to be further dialogue with community groups, and there's something that comes out of that, I'm quite happy to have a look at it. But I believe that that's going to be, as the General Manager just pointed out, it's going to be a revision of the existing plan, and that needs to be something negotiated with a contract, because I believe council staff have been out into the marketplace to have a look at the equipment which is available, not only in the marketplace, but what is about in like facilities within Tasmania. So I'm confident that they have done the legwork to make the investigations to come up with the best fit for the money that we have afforded to this particular project. And because I contend that that is what we as council, one of our values is that we provide best value, and the best value that we've got in this tender process is the contract that has been recommended for us in the recommendation. So I'm happy to go with that, but I'm also happy to have further dialogue with the community about, well, what are your concerns and what can we do to address those concerns, and move the project forward, because I believe that it has been stalled for long enough, and that, yes, we've been through a process, but to protract that, as we've heard, is going to be potentially problematic for council and the project. So if we can facilitate dialogue and approve the recommended builder, I think that that is a position that I would prefer over the recommended one we have before us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any further speakers? Councillor Highland.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd support or concur what Councillor Fairbrother has said. It's been a project that's been on the books for a long time, and with the amount of money that's in the project and the work that the council staff has done and is still doing in the community to work through some issues, either whether we get this or whether we get that, it's still ongoing for quite a while, and certainly quite happy to meet with the fairy godmothers and let's see what we can't negotiate in the long term. And who knows that we may not pick up a sponsor or two along the way and agree to anything else that anybody else may want to shift or replaced. I think there's plenty of room to move in it, but I think we should go forward and let the tender, and then let's work on it on the way through. There's a lot of work to go before we actually turn a sod of soil.
Thank you, Councillor Highland. Any further speakers? Councillor Duniam, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree also with Councillor Fairbrother and Councillor Highland. I do think that we need to award that contract. Councillor Fairbrother did identify that it has taken years. I think we can actually go back further than our past General Manager, Michael Stretton. I think it was when Greg Winton was the General Manager. So we have been looking at this for a very, very long time. It has been a very slow process, and I agree that the staff have done a huge amount of work. They have endeavoured to collaborate with all stakeholders, those that use the Anzac Park site and those that wish for the playground to accommodate the needs of the disabled and anyone else. So I do think that we need to start moving this forward, but I also do believe we need to have further conversation with the fairy godmothers.
Councillors, I've been wondering about this deferral for quite a while since Councillor Courtney suggested it, and I believe it's a procedural motion in relation to our rules and regulations that I just confided with the General Manager about, and I think it's a procedural motion which we have no further debate on really, and it can be enacted upon as a procedural motion without taking a vote. And a month will give us a month. We can talk to the contractor, we can talk to the Fairy Godmothers group, and come again in a month's time.
Yeah, just we've had a number of speakers.
I know we have.
Is it okay if I just close on why I put it up?
Oh, it's not necessary, but I guess we've had that many speakers now, not illegally, but against the meeting procedures, that it wouldn't hurt to have another one.
Yeah, I just want to say it's okay that we can say we've worked on this for 5 years, but if the people that are going to use the playground most have come to us and said after 5 years we still haven't got it right,
yes,
perhaps we've done something wrong in that 5 years.
Yep. Okay, it's a procedural motion that it lay on the table. We defer it for further consultation, and I believe we could, as I spoke with the GM, we can come back within a month after discussions, and the contractor would, we could come to an arrangement with the contractor under those arrangements.
I know we can't talk, Mayor, but I thought the General Manager indicated we had 3 days for the tender.
That's so
expired,
right.
So
yeah, through Mr. You can negotiate, I guess, for an extension of time, which they may or may not accept. I would imagine they would, but yeah, I can't say with any certainty sitting here tonight that that is the case, because we don't know for sure. But so you do run that risk, but it would be likely. I would suggest. Yeah.
Do you have something to say, Councillor Fairbrother?
Just ask a question if I can. Do you intend on putting the procedural motion to a vote?
No.
Mayor, why? What regulation or rule do you rely on not to put the procedural motion? Can I move another procedural motion if it's just bizarre that we have a procedural motion before us and we don't get the opportunity to vote on the procedural motion? The procedural motion hasn't been passed.
And because it's a procedure we're going to take to decide on the item, on the matter. It's a procedure we're going to take. Another. What have we got there, Mr. GM?
The chairperson accepts the procedural motion. No discussion is to be allowed, and the procedural motion is to be put to the vote.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been around a while, but I didn't know that. Okay, Councillor Fairbrother, I'll read you item 4 on the. It is if the chairperson of a meeting accepts a procedural motion, A, no discussion on the procedural motion is to be allowed, and B, the procedural motion is to be put to the vote. Okay, we will take a show of hands. Those for the procedural motion that it be delayed, deferred, or whatever you like to call it. Show of hands, please. Councillor Edwards, Councillor Bradley, Councillor Courtney, Councillor Bramish and myself. Those against? Councillor Hyland, Councillor Fairbrother and Deputy Mayor Dunyap. The procedural motion is carried. Fixed. You learn a bit on the job as you keep going, you know. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, 9.12, the financial report for the period ended the 31st of August. No. Really? Okay, councillors, don't rush me with a motion because we're a bit slow tonight, and I am too. But look, can we have a move and a seconder, please,
Yes,
for this?
so moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan, we're doing a lot. Okay, Councillor Bramish seconded. Any speakers? Any questions? I'll put the motion that we award the contract.
I thought the mover might have spoke. Yeah, yeah, I'd like to speak. Just to say that we're going to save $200,000 here, and that'll be very handy in the coffers somewhere. Good on yous. Well done.
Any further speakers? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. We're right now with 9.12, Mr GM. 9.12, the financial report for the period ended the 31st of August. Happy with that? There's a recommendation there, councillors?
So moved.
Yeah.
Councillor Courtney.
Councillor Courtney moved.
I'll second.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan seconded. Any questions in relation to that report? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. 9.13, the Senior Management Report. Thank you, Councillor Courtney.
I'll second that.
Councillor Edwards. Any questions? Councillor Bramish.
I've got a question. Can we make the writing a little bit bigger on pages 102 and 103 and or whatever? Even with my glasses on, I've got to really strain to read it. I wouldn't think it'd be hard because you got a little bit in a big page. If you understand what I mean.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Take.
Please, thank you.
Taken
Good
on
you.
board.
Yep.
Okay. Any further any questions, councillors? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.14.1, the minutes of other bodies and committees. The Audit Panel Committee held at the 24th of August there. All that.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, I think Councillor Ireland moved it, and Councillor Dunyan, Deputy, seconded it. Any questions regarding that 9.14.1? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, we move to 10 on the agenda, which recommendation the council resolves by an absolute majority that the matters listed below be considered in the closed meeting.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan. Councillor Bramish. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 11, closure of the meeting to the public, that the council resolves by absolute majority that go into closed meeting to consider the following matters at 7:42.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan. Councillor Bramish. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried.